Oh, I didn't need anything.
Okay, I'll, yeah, I'll try, yeah, I'll try and get in contact with her. Heather.
Heather. Oh, well, please tell her thank you, but I. Okay, so
Yeah, sorry about that.
yeah, I'm okay, but you guys.
Do you have the paper written session number 3? If you're not, please let me know. I will give it to you. Anybody has session number 3?
Do you have a handout?
Yeah, Chico says he has the others.
No. Can I have?
昨日私
Oh, you got shrunk. Oh.
Ready already. Good evening, everyone. My name is Rod Moriyama, and I have the honor of being the pinch hit MC for the evening. Dexter and Faith have another commitment, so I hope I can do half as good a job as he does. First, some administrative things. Make sure you signed in and registered, and you know where the bathrooms are. We have refreshments again. Thank you for all the contributions that people have made for refreshments and cakes and all kinds of stuff like that. It's really, really terrific. What else? Oh, the usual cell phones. Make sure you turn your cell phones off so it's not. And throughout the evening, as you think about stuff, please, write down your thoughts and provide feedback about the session so that we can make continuous improvement in what we're trying to get accomplished. The schedule this evening is we're going to have our first section from 6:30 to 7:30, first hour, and then we'll have 15 minutes of question and answer, followed by a 15-minute break. And then we'll start part 2 at 8 o'clock for 45 minutes, and then have a Q&A at 8:45. Now, following that, we're going to have the Pauhana post session. We have refreshments in the refrigerator. So last night they had a very good session last night with 5 people talking and very interactively with Dr. Kenneth Harada. Tanaka. Sorry, that didn't
So I got a new name.
that didn't sound right. I thought, no, that's Marvin Harada. Kenneth. Right. And okay, so Bombu, it's called. Last night, my wife is still babysitting. That's our day job. And so right after the session, I won't be able to stay. And I go and pick her up, and then we go home. And I was all excited about the fact that we are recording these things, and it's on live stream. And it's on BSC Hawaii on YouTube. Yeah, so just go to youtube.com, BSC Hawaii, and look for Summer Session 2018, and you'll be able to get a recording of every evening that we have. Now, I'll also tell you that I was so excited. I told my wife, "Hey, let's watch. Let's see what's on YouTube," and it was kind of junk. It's not anywhere near what we get, the interaction, the interpersonal relationships. This is like a reunion because it's so much fun to see everybody just coming to the summer session. And it makes a difference, that feeling of togetherness and enthusiasm that we have in this session. So make a lot of noise when he cracks a joke. Laugh out loud. The jokes don't come out too well when nobody's laughing. It's kind of like, So we're recording this, and his face is kind of like a talking head, right? He's just talking. And so we've got to get that interaction in there. So without further ado, we're going to, this evening's session is on turning difficulties into renewal life and actions to bring centeredness into our lives. So without further ado, Dr. Kenneth
Harada. Okay. Thank you for that, Rod. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Okay, third night, and actually I've switched the order around from what Rod just read, and I wanted to first deal with actions to bring centeredness in our lives, first session, and then turning difficulties into renewed life. So, okay, so I guess we'll start. Before that, I wanted to acknowledge the ministers who are here to participate and hear this session. And so my longtime senpai, former Bishop Reverend Okano, and Mrs. Okano, thank you for being here. I'm so honored and humbled to have you here. And same with Limba Muneto. Thank you, former Limba Muneto. Now he's free at last. Both of them are free at last. And then, now the bishop is coming, so I wanted to thank the bishop for participating, and also the younger ministers who are here. Reverend Takahashi, where are you, Reverend Takahashi? There you are. And then Reverend Kamuro was here yesterday, and the day before he's not here. And then Reverend Furusawa. So I appreciate you being here, and if you have any feedback, criticism, I'm happy to hear. And So, oh, oh, another young minister. Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't. Reverend Sumikawa. Okay, yeah. All right. Sorry. I know. Yeah. How long were you minister? 10 years. Oh, okay. So maybe because I was kind of out of the country, I probably didn't have as much interaction with you, as much as compared to.
You know what? We're not quiet.
Oh, quiet and not loud like Reverend Muneto and Reverend. Yes. Okay. Oh, okay. We'll go with that. All right. So, Buddhism, as I said earlier, before, is very much concerned with difficulties and dukkha, or suffering. The Buddha, in fact, said his purpose was to talk about suffering, cause of suffering, and how to overcome suffering. And as you know about his life, it's when he saw those signs of suffering that motivated him to leave the castle, and then went off to, to the jungle to cultivate and to seek the way towards enlightenment. So, if you look at your handout, actually, this was 4 pages long, but it shrunk to a little over 3, about less than 3 pages. So it's little. The prints are smaller than I would want. I guess starting tomorrow, I'll make sure. This happened yesterday too. Anyway, so first, actions to bring centeredness into our lives. And I wanted to handle this topic as an important element in seeking, happiness and meaningful life, because we encounter difficulties and suffering quite often. And especially when the difficulties and suffering are very severe, very serious. Often you don't know what to do with your mind. Something happens, and then you feel this gut-wrenching feeling, and you wonder, oh, how am I going to overcome this? I have to go with this for I don't know how long. And so I wanted to, as usual, wanted to use my own personal example as a starting point. And there are 2 difficulties that I encountered. One I have addressed before. That is on November 2nd, 2016, November 8th, 2016, Donald Trump became president. And this is my own personal, experience. And some of you may have been happy, which is fine. I think we can have different views about politics in a religious context. But for me, it was quite traumatic, and I had a difficult time adjusting. And then to some extent, that feeling is continuing. And the second one is probably more serious. I had a physical exam reported back to me on December the 27th, and it said that there was a spot on the x-ray, the chest x-ray. And then I said, no, I wasn't expecting to get it at that time. And here's, holidays are starting. My kids have gone to Tokyo to spend the holidays with me. And the hospital is closed for a whole 2 weeks. I can't get any kind of commentary on it. So I had to endure this for a whole 2 weeks. And so it added to the, difficulty. Well, just to give you, so that the conclusion is that it wasn't serious at all, but it was reality. It said on the sheet that there is a spot, and it is not normal, and so that just started this whole triggered this whole feelings, and it was quite dramatic for me, and so at that point I thought about, well, I think I may have mentioned my mother when she was much younger. She asked me one time, in Buddhism, do you have a mechanism of how to, hold your feelings, or how to deal and kind of treat your feelings? And at that time, I was still young, and I didn't have anything like that. And so I said, I think Buddhism does have something more than maybe other religions, but I didn't know what it is, especially because, I belong to Joro Shinshu. Joro Shinshu probably is somewhat weak when it comes to introspection and looking at your mind. At least that's what I thought at that time. So anyway, when we encounter difficulties, and there are two ways to deal. We need to we need to cultivate ourselves within a particular framework, and that is something that you all know about. It's the most well-known teaching are the Eightfold Noble Truths, but today I wanted to talk more about the six paramitas, because it's more Mahayana, and actually Bodhisattva Dharmakara in our tradition practiced six paramitas. And so I think since most of you know a lot about Eightfold Noble Truth, I wanted to focus on six paramitas. Plus, I think six paramitas have a greater, somewhat more of an connectedness with other people, more of a, not just so focused on the individual, but somewhat more connected to others. And so, what are the six paramitas? Okay, so rather than writing, then it's in the handout. They are dana, precepts, patience, effort, meditation, and wisdom. And today I wanted to talk about two of them. First one, dana, and then the second one, meditation. And actually, we should be practicing this in the regular time, a normal course of life, not just when some difficulties are forced upon you. And so, the six of them, basically. And I wanted to, I'll talk about dana, but precepts are basically ethical precepts. And they include things like, don't take life, do not steal, don't engage in illicit sexual relationship. And then they have 4 on verbal ethical actions. Don't speak harshly of other people. Don't gossip. No idle talk. Things of that nature. And then the last one has there are 3 of them, which are basically the 3 poisons. Now, someone kind of said humorously that we choose the 6 paramitas because the precepts here is different from the 5 precepts which are very much practiced in Southeast Asia. If you go to Southeast Asia, they all recite the 5 precepts. And the last one is do not take, we refrain from taking alcoholic beverages. So if you were to apply that seriously here, we would have difficulty, real difficulty. So, but there is a difference. And so in the 10 precepts, so actually precepts here, 10 precepts, 10 virtuous acts, it's called. And in this framework, there is no prohibition against taking alcoholic beverages. So, okay, patience is enduring, putting up with maybe criticism, the hardships, because if you practice Buddhism, you're going against the stream. Most people just live life, as they come, but if you are trying to improve yourself, you tend to go against the grain, against the flow. So you may get criticism, and sometimes it takes a lot of work, and so you need patience. And so walking a religious life is not easy, and it's extraordinary. So you have to remember to have patience, or perseverance is another translation. Effort is something that is very much necessary. We confuse effort with power, self-effort, self-power. Yesterday I mentioned this, that in Jodo Shinshu we are against self-power, but we shouldn't be against self-effort. Self-effort is something that is very much required, I would say. At some point in your life, you have to make effort. And at some point, then you come to the realization that you don't need to make any more effort as before. But I think even if you become enlightened or have attained Shinjin, you will continue to make effort, maybe not for yourself anymore, but make effort for others. I mean, enlightened people practice and do things for the rest of their lives, not because they have to, but because they want to. And so effort is not a bad thing. Meditation, we'll talk about today. That's the focus. And then the last one is wisdom. Wisdom can be understood in different ways, but basically, what do you think the content of wisdom is? Traditionally, in the 6 paramitas. It's the understanding of the Four Noble Truths. That's the traditional. Wisdom is to understand the Four Noble Truths. But I also include 4 marks of existence that I have talked about, and I have addressed it in detail in my second book, the Yellow Book, Buddhism on Air. That book is very much have to do with 4 marks of existence. And they are: life is a bumpy road, life is interdependent, life is impermanent, and life can be great. Those 4. These are, of course, colloquial expressions. So those 4, actually, they're called marks because they distinguish. There are teachings that are rather unique to Buddhism, or it really, when the teaching that is symbolic or represent Buddhism, that's why they're called 3 marks. So what is Buddhism? And those 4 points were back in India considered the 3 marks of what makes teaching Buddhistic. Yes? So please remember that I haven't talked about it very much, but life is a bumpy road, or things don't go your way. Second one, life is interdependent. Interdependent, sometimes it's called non-self. Non-self is kind of hard to understand sometimes, so we say interdependence. Then impermanence, and life is fundamentally good, or life can be great. Okay, so let's talk about dana. Dana, and you all know this, and Moilili Honganji is the origin of the well-known project called Project Dana. Actually, there was even a Project Dana in Tokyo. This young minister was inspired by your project and started Project Dana for a number of years. And he had to go away to a foreign country so that it stopped. But it's, has had effects elsewhere. And so Dana, there are different kinds of Dana. Dana that where you share or you give things, material things, i.e. money, But one thing that we can all practice are the 7 non-material danas. So they're non-material. It's you give selflessly, and dana means selfless giving, right? Ideally, you don't expect anything in return, but you give because you want to, without expecting anything in return. And what are those selfless 7 non-material dana? And they're written here. What you do through your body, through your mind, speech, amiable countenance, eyes, amiable eyes, giving up sitting, and offering a place to stay overnight. So these are something that even students can practice. Even if you don't have any money, you can practice. And so, bodily, the first one, bodily, would be anything that you can do for others by using your body. What would be one example you can think of? If it's since I'm living in Japan, sometimes I see an older person carrying something up the stairs, and simply you say, "May I help? May I help you?" And that's a example of physical bodily dana. And mind and heart is like more kokoro. It's thoughtfulness basically. Through your mind, you give concern to somebody. If your friend is in trouble and really down, you go to that person and say, "Oh, is there anything I can do?" And you kind of share your thoughtfulness. And even though you may think it may be an imposition, but I think if it's your true friend, you say it anyway. You can say, "It may be an imposition, but I'm here to help if you need me." And that's the one. Another one is speech. Speech is what you say, through speech, and kind words, kind thought, and greetings are important. Actually, the Japanese word for speech, and if you know anybody's, it's called aisatsu. Aisatsu. And it's very difficult Chinese characters. And I didn't know this for a long time, but it actually comes from Buddhism. It means that 2 monks, when they debate, they approach each other, and the approaching and then opening their heart to each other, that is called aisatsu. And so it comes from Buddhism, and it's basically an act of opening up to the other, and then by extension to others. So it's originally a Buddhist term. The amiable countenance is, amiable facial features or not gestures. Smile, that itself is often can be a dana to somebody else. I've had a number of occasions at the university when I was somewhat down in the morning, and then a student will come by and with a bright smile and says, "Ohayou gozaimasu, sensei," and it really made me, feel good, and a number of times, yeah. So I really encouraged my students that aisatsu, greetings, is a Buddhist term, so that's why if you see me on campus, just say hello, say something. And I've had students probably do that more often than to other professors. Sometimes you get these guys, a bunch of guys come together, and they come up and they make it very obvious that they're trying to sell themselves. And they say, konnichiwa, and all that. And they say, oh, by the way, I'm so-and-so of this class. Remember me? I said, that's merit. That's not. And I said, dana doesn't what? What's unique about dana? Selfless, or you're not expecting anything in return. You do it because you want to, not because you want to get a good grade. Yeah. So that's the other one. And so we were talking about, and eyes, They say the eyes are the window to your soul. But, so actually, if you are not cultivating yourself, you can't consciously try to make your eyes amiable. It's a little too late. You have to work at it, So I don't know how you try to consciously make your eyes, very kind, loving kindness, So, but that's why you got to be cultivating this all the time. And then giving up your seat, and maybe it doesn't happen so much here because you don't ride public transportation, but that's something that is applicable, especially in places like Tokyo, and which, by the way, I was finally given a seat. This was almost 2 years ago, and I was standing here, and actually the priority seat, So this young couple there, and then, I was talking with my wife, and then he stood up and said, "Dozo," and it didn't register. I wasn't sure what he was saying, And then my wife says, "Oh, it's for you." And I said, "Oh," and I said, "I've always said, don't get angry, say, what do you mean? I'm still young." I'm still young, and not yet, But I meant, then I kind of nicely said, "Thank you," and I sat down. But in my heart, I said, "Wait a minute, this is not true." No, this was an interesting moment, So, so nowadays, I don't go to the priority section and stand. No, really, I still have this ego. I don't think I need to, be given a seat. And so I stand in the regular place. And I always try to stand up straight, and look young. Well, you're all laughing, but you can probably identify with me. But at some point, when I need to sit down, I'll go to the priority section and I'll probably tell them, "Hey, would you stand up?" Because you got a lot of young people, they just sit in the priority section and they're just reading or sleeping. And I told my students, you can sit there if you're really tired, but don't, go to sleep or, don't look around. You got to be looking around. And so one time, that reminds me, when I first got there 20 years ago, I think the first year, there was a young junior high school student, and then, here in front of me, and then there was an elderly person older than me, and this young guy stood up, and he was still, not so big, and a child, and so I was so impressed that he gave up his seat, and he went around that way, but I followed him, and I tapped on his shoulders, and he looked at me, and he was kind of surprised, because people in Tokyo, they don't talk to strangers. So here's this strange guy, strange, old man or older man, and so he didn't know, so he thought maybe he would be scolded. I said, "Oh, by the way, what you just did is a great thing. I applaud you." And he says, "Oh, thank you." So I thought that it's good for society, for us adults to encourage good behavior. And I think probably he'll never forget that for the rest of his life. So if you can also encourage good behavior or acts, amongst the younger generation, by all means, we should do that. It takes a village, or it takes what? What was that? What's the word? It takes a village to raise a child. Yeah. And nowadays, people don't really get involved too much, Before, neighbors would really scold the children of other neighbors because they thought they were part of the big family. But not anymore because people are afraid of being, sued or scolded or whatever. And so that's somewhat sad. Okay. Well, I'm going way too long, but okay. So meditation. Now, so we've done of the 6 paramitas. We've done dana, and the rest I'm not going to talk about. Maybe if we have time in other sessions, I might. But I want to focus on meditation because this helps you to really work on the mind when you are having difficulties. So, and I wrote 3: meditation, mindfulness, or quiet sitting meditation. So I know with us Joro Shinshu, we don't have officially meditation, but quiet sitting is the word quiet sitting is not a problem. The former Monshu, I asked him one time, and he says, yeah, quiet meditation, in Japanese it's called seiza. Seiza is no problem. So, just to make it a little bit easier for some people, rather than saying mindfulness meditation. And then and meditation is more generic. Buddhism places importance on quieting the mind, and so you can see things more clearly. And then I also have Nembutsu meditation, and so it's more of the oral recitation of the name. And so I wanted to do this somewhat, 5 minutes and or so. So we started this yesterday. So mindfulness meditation, or any kind of meditation, is you put your left hand over your right, and your thumbs like this. Right, Reverend Muneto should be leading this, but and then you breathe through your nose. Okay, you can close your eyes, or you can open your eyes halfway and 45 degrees down, or you can have your hands on your knees like this. We're not particular, Okay, so please start. And as I said yesterday, when you breathe, the warm air is felt underneath, right under your nose and above your lips. And then when you breathe in, you feel the coolness. And try to just concentrate your mind there. And then thoughts will arise, and one other way to deal with it is simply to acknowledge it and let go. Just let it rise and don't chase it, don't get attached, just let it go. And when you're having difficulties, those thoughts will come up. You can't stop it, they come up, but you don't dwell on it and just let go. So I would like for you to look into your past, and recall any very difficult situation that you encountered, the one that you can, emotionally handle, and I want to have you keep that in mind. And as you do that, I want to say a few words about when I got that physical exam report indicating that there was a spot on my lungs. What I did was this mindfulness meditation, and it really helped to overcome this to quite a degree. And so the 2 weeks that I had to wait to find out, it got better, easier. And same with November 8th, 2016, when we had got the new president that I didn't want. And okay, so maybe I shouldn't have been talking now, but okay. Next, what I also did is Nembutsu recitation. So quietly, so we'll just do in unison we'll recite Namandabu, okay? Namandabu, Namandabu, Okay, 3 more times. You. All right, so I did both of these on those 2 occasions, and it did help quite a bit. And so it's something for you to keep in mind when you run up against a very difficult time and you don't know what to do with your mind. Try both, one or the other. And with regard to when Donald Trump got elected, I had to go out to teach downtown Tokyo, and I had to come back, and I remember being so lethargic. I was so, and then in the train, I practiced mindfulness, and then in the train at the end, I was reciting the Nembutsu quietly, because in the train, if I think it would seem a little strange when I'm reciting Nembutsu in a crowded train. So, but you gotta, you have to adjust to the conditions, and then, so by the time I got almost to my home, I felt a bit ease, and I was able to kind of regain myself. And then, with regard to the test result, the same thing. It took a little longer. And then, did I tell you about the conclusion that it wasn't anything serious, but what it was? It was a mistake. Actually, this was a new place, and then the head of the clinic came to the university to talk to each of the faculty, because we were contracted to go there. And then I was the first one interviewed, and when I first went, the first thing he said, he started apologizing, and he says, "Sumimasen," and I said. And I thought, oh. Then he says, it was a mistake. And I said, oh. And I didn't know whether to get angry or not, but, or be happy. But I took the latter. I was, okay, this is a good news. Okay, I don't care if they made a mistake. And so that was the, I think someone says, oh, you should sue them and stuff like that. But I said, no. If I did that, they'll say, oh, he's American, But I was, okay, so let's move on to, I don't, maybe some people cannot see this, but yesterday, I'm sorry. Maybe I'll do it here. Can you see someone here? Okay. Maybe, no, I guess I can't. You just have to, maybe if you can't see, you can step up, stand up over there. Okay, I'll stand on this side. And this is the 5 experiential processes that I talked about. Normally, it's called the 5 aggregates. And these are used to kind of argue that we have no substantial self. Buddhism, no substantial entity, that our experiences are comprised of 5 different elements or components. Okay? But I have used it, as I said yesterday, as kind of more like a process of experience, or epistemology is a kind of difficult word, I guess, but maybe process of experience. So, form is more like the 5 senses. What we see, what we hear, etc. And then every moment we go through this, So you're doing this right now. Right now, what are the senses that you are picking up from me? Seeing and hearing. I hope you're not smelling me. Okay? So seeing and hearing. And then feelings. Is it good, bad, or neutral? Good. Oh, thank you. Okay. So, and then you have some thought, and something like, he's a summer session speaker, and that's why he's talking about Buddhism. And you have these different thoughts. You may be saying, maybe I heard this yesterday, so why is he talking this again? You have different thoughts coming up. And to that, you have response. This is intention here, but response. Well, you say, whatever I'm thinking, I'm going to stay here and listen. I'm not going to stand up and leave. And so this one here is consciousness. Is probably it's what makes conscious of all these 4 different things. So this is, it applies to the others. But as I said the other day, that this consciousness becomes a central element of our consciousness. And this later, in the later school called Yogacara Buddhism, or consciousness-only school, this becomes much more developed into a subconscious, or alayashiki, or alaya vijnana. And it's what retains the memory, and what actually, and I have these arrows going both ways. Actually, whatever we think, for example here, whatever we think, this actually kind of is deposited in your consciousness. And then, so whatever that is deposited, that will impact on how you feel about that person. For example, if you were bitten by a dog when you were young, and you had this traumatic experience, then when you see a dog, you often feel negative about that dog, or any dog. So that's true with any categories of people, So it's always often the memory will impact how you experience. So the key is here is, okay. So I'll take the case of our president when he got when I heard on TV in Japan it was a day earlier, but anyway, so I saw on TV. I was looking at the monitor, and around 10 o'clock, and they had the scale, like Clinton this way and Donald Trump this way, and initially it was like this, and by the time 10 o'clock, it's going up like this, and then I remember I'm yelling, say, "Oh no!" And then around 11 o'clock, I caught myself kind of yelling real loud, "Oh no!" And then I don't know what the guy next door thought, but he probably thought, something terrible was going on. And then, by around noontime in Japan time, it was pretty much decided. And so here the feelings was pretty negative. I didn't like it. And then thought here is, what's going to happen? And because my perception, and again, this is my perception, and it could be wrong, and it's self-centered. But all these adjectives like he is kind of a misogynist, he's kind of narcissistic, he's almost racist, these are things that and half the people in the U.S. Feel that way. It's a fact, and I have some of those thoughts, and but the problem is that if I dwell on this too much, and then I carry this into here, and all my other activities and intentions are swayed by this, then it will lead to more suffering on my part. And I'll talk more about how it goes. So anyway, the key, and then I wish to talk now about a psychological therapy called Gestalt. And I'm not obviously I don't know much about this, but I have tried to adopt a bit of this. And Gestalt is, if you look at number 5, okay? Have you heard of Gestalt? Yeah. And have some of you actually practiced or done work in this field? Okay. Well, actually, I learned about this in Japanese. So I was looking around for the original term, and so I'm not probably using the right terms. But basically, Gestalt was founded by Frederick and Laura Perls, and there are these dates. And it's interestingly, they actually got interested in Buddhism, and so they studied in Kyoto, and what they emphasized, or one of the hallmarks of their therapy or thinking, is, as I have here, emphasize 2 points. One is that we are part of webs of relationships. Now, it sounds Buddhistic, right? Interdependent, interconnected. And so they emphasize that dimension. And then, secondly, the present moment. These two values are stressed by them. And then they also stress awareness. Awareness of, these two other main points, among others. So awareness, and they call the awareness something to the effect of little Satori. So here you have example of American psychologists really, adopting or have been influenced by Buddhism. And so actually, one of the teachings has to do with number 6, 3 realms of awareness. And actually, they posit that there are 3 levels of awareness. And again, these are, I'm not sure if these are the terms that they actually use, but external, internal, and intermediary realms of experience. And so, and they actually kind of coincide with the 5 processes that I have talked about here. And so, first of all, you have the external realm, internal realm, and I have middle realm. Maybe you should change that to number 3, intermediary realm. Okay, if you can change that, number 3 would be intermediary realm. That's the culprit. That's the part that we don't want too much of. And so what they say is that we should just basically, if we applied it to this realm, the external realm is here, more of what is outside. So the five, if you look at here, five senses, and just five senses, and no imagination, no interpretation, but just interacting is what is out there. What is no interpretation, no imagination, just what you pick up from the senses. And then the internal applies more to the feelings part. Is if you look here, you have two dimensions: the physical senses, and then B, the feelings. So it fits well here. So and the physical senses are like, maybe if it's difficult, you have feeling senses such as stomach ache, stiff neck, shoulders, pressure on the buttocks, and dry mouth. These are some of the and then the feelings could be anger, sadness, joy, warm, and fuzzy, etc. So here you have the external level, and then the internal realm, and then the last, the middle realm. Actually, for purposes of better understanding, I think the thoughts here that we talked about, these are like prejudices, are likes and dislikes, judgment, preferences. These we all need, but they really color the way we experience things, and often if you hang on to them, it leads to suffering. And so I have here imagination, judgment, evaluations, preferences, thoughts, etc. Okay, so now let's just give an example. Example 1 had to do with Donald Trump, and example 2, we're still at 6 now. We're still at 6. Go back to external realm. So if you can think about your own difficulty or the suffering, and see if you can apply it here and how it would seem to you. Okay, so in my case, example 1 had to do with Donald Trump when he got elected. So according to Gestalt, the external realm, when I heard this, I say, I have just seen and heard on TV about Donald Trump winning the election. Okay? And let's go to the internal realm. Okay? And I am feeling lethargic in my entire body. And that was true. All day I was very lethargic and like I had no energy. So this is the internal realm. And according to Gestalt, we should just leave things that way. You just see what's out there and you just feel it, and don't bring the intermediary, or in this case thoughts. And what are the thoughts? If you can, you have to turn the page to top of page 2. And example 1. I am imagining catastrophic chaos for a country and the world, and wishing that Barack Obama were still president. Okay, this is my thinking. Okay, and so according to Gestalt, the problem with this is that first, in one instance, I'm not in the present moment, right? I'm imagining that it just will be catastrophic. In reality, it's not catastrophic. It's not good either, in my opinion. A year and a half later, especially with matters related to environment and climate change. This is my personal feeling. I just don't agree with these policies. But it's not catastrophic. So, well, we don't know. That's the thing. On one end, in one sense, the North Korea situation has hopes of getting better, and that is something to acknowledge. So we cannot judge everything one way or the other, black and white. But I have to acknowledge what is good as good, and what is not good, according to my position, as not good. But anyway, but when I'm thinking about Barack Obama, again, it's contrary to being in the present. I mean, in the past. Okay, that's not reality. So same with Buddhism. Buddhism helps us to see and live according to reality. No matter, even if you don't like it, and we have to see reality and live according to it. That is the basic intent of Buddhism as well. Okay, so let's go back to page 1 at the bottom. Example 2 is that physical exam. So I have one. So the internal realm, external realm. I have just seen my physical exam report indicating a spot on the chest X-ray. Okay, and then number 2, the internal realm. In terms of the physical sense, example 2, I'm feeling stress around the stomach, and that did happen. You go, oh, and when something stressful happens, it manifests in your body someplace. So you should notice this when you have experienced, difficulty. And then example 2, down on the level of feelings, I'm feeling great angst, fear, and worry. Okay? So, and then the middle realm, or the intermediate realm that we should actually avoid, page 2, at the top, page 2. Now this is very clear. I am imagining that the X-ray spot could be cancerous or indicate another serious condition. So, but ask yourself, in that moment, is that reality? No. I'm just thinking this out loud, or I'm imagining. And I'm not here in the present moment, I'm going to the future. And it's not, so that's why Gestalt and Buddhism basically says to this intermediary realm, or our thoughts, which are basically judgments and ideas, though we need them, Gestalt says, get rid of it. Get rid of it. But the problem is, we as ordinary imperfect beings, or ordinary foolish beings, we cannot get rid of that thoughts, or intermediary. So look at number 7. According to Gestalt, and even Buddhism, the aim is to eliminate the intermediary realm, or Buddhistically speaking, we can say it's like, it's prejudice, attachment, discrimination. These are causes of our suffering. But anyway, okay. But the point I just made, but as ordinary imperfect beings, we cannot do so completely. We cannot get rid of intermediary. We'll do it. So then what should we do? So we should come to realize that we are creating our own suffering by our imagination. So at least know the causes of your angst and suffering. That you are, creating unnecessary suffering. In the case of myself, I'm imagining that this could be cancer or something serious. Or that I'm imagining that, Donald Trump's administration will be tragedy or catastrophic. Catastrophic. I can't even say it now. Okay. So we should come to realize that we are creating our own suffering by our imagination, judgments, evaluations, preferences, and these often have to do with the past or to the future, but not of this moment. So that is the nature of often when you face, okay, so when we face something that is difficult and you don't know what to do with your thoughts, well, you have some technique like, mindful meditation, Nembutsu meditation, and try that, and that can help you to, settle your mind and give you some space for other things. And then to know that we often create the intermediary realm unnecessarily, and they cause unnecessary suffering. And also, if you can keep this kind of framework in mind, it will help you to see how your mind works. And so when someone says something that you don't like, and then you feel a negative feeling, and then you have thoughts, and then you have thoughts of getting back at that person, maybe if you can see how the mind works, you won't react immediately. You can have a pause. And so I think what I've done in this session is to help you with the difficulties when they arise. And hopefully you don't have to practice this too often. But I assure you, it will happen. It has happened, and it will happen. And of course, as Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, definitely the recitation of the name, it should be very comforting to you. But it will not be so unless it will be so only if you have been practicing on a regular basis. You can't just recite the Nembutsu when things are going bad. It has to be a constant cultivation. Okay, so it's exactly 1 hour, so I shall end here. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Any
Okay.
comments you want to share?
Sensei, I don't think this applies to all situations because what if you were confronted with a gunman? They have the gun at all of you and all of that. You don't have time for these responses, and also maybe you panic, maybe you have the fight or flight response, and I think it would overshadow all of this.
So what are you saying in that very difficult situation of that seriousness? What would you?
Well, I had a kind of situation. We all were aware on January 13th that there was supposedly a nuclear threat.
Oh, yeah.
So all I could say at that time, like you, Namanda. And that's all I did. And then put Oshoko, and that's all I did.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I see nothing wrong with that. I don't think what you're saying contradicts what I'm saying. But you have to case by case. Yeah, certainly. And
but I think it's not going to be formed like what you're saying. It's going to be either a direct response, direct internal response, or you yell and scream, or you cry, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, but let's. So when that happened, when you heard, how did you find out?
I got the
radio?
text alert. I got the text alert.
Alert. Okay, and then the feeling here is, of course, negative and just terror. Yeah. And then what? Can I ask you what your thoughts were?
I felt so sorry for everybody. I felt sorry for the people on the street. I felt sorry for the people who didn't get the alert. I felt sorry for all of us dying at one crack. And I felt sorry for the people that were having surgeries. So just sorry, you know.
Yeah. So, and then what did you do? You said, well, you recited the Nembutsu
And then Oshoko.
I see. Okay. And but that is a natural response, and so and yeah, and of course the source of the difficulty is not any person in front of you, so it is quite somewhat different. But did you think at all about Kim Jong-un and?
Yeah, I thought, oh, the crazy Korean.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. Okay, so well, thank you for sharing that. And what you say, I have no problem. I mean, no, I agree. Yeah. Okay, so we have. Did anybody? I thought you had no.
Maybe I just wanted to say that we all had varied responses to that because I saw it on the television screen.
Yeah.
But I saw no other signs to support that. So I thought it was unusual. No other sign that there was an emergency and so I doubted it.
So, you doubted it. So what
not
did you?
On the rate,
what did you do? Did you do? Just continued on?
I kept watching and looking to see what might happen, but there were no other things that supported it. So, well, maybe I let too much time go by. But so I was in a dubious state.
I see. Okay.
Dr. Tanaka, you always talk about Donald Trump, and I too feel the same way as you do, but I wrote down on this pink card, and I don't think it will take all day, but what is religion? Is Donald Trump religious? I'm not sure.
Oh.
And then the thing that came up is, I think I told you that I do stay with Reverend Fujitani. So we talk about all kinds of stuff. And one of the things we were talking about was Donald Trump, of course. And then I came to your session Monday, and Tuesday I went back to his house and I told him, I think we should talk about it again, because I wasn't really sure what he was trying to tell me about Donald Trump. You
mean Reverend Fujitani?
Yeah, Reverend Fujitani. And I don't want to misquote him, so I'm not going to really say, but of course, why do so many people agree with him to the effect that, about the vote, about voting.
Voting?
Yeah. Because one more vote's going to come up again. And, the thing you said, you could accept Donald Trump, you could leave, or you could change, right? But anyway, I think a lot of it has to do with he himself. And that's why I asked, is he religious? Are we religious? And by being religious, you act a different way. Not different way. You act in a certain way.
Well, I can't judge.
I know.
How religious he is, or how. But if we, what his actions, you sometimes wonder what his values are, and But anyway, we have different opinions about politics and yeah. Okay. So you.
I just want to make a comment. I was in the mainland just prior to the election in the Rust Belt. When I came back to Hawaii, I told several of my friends that Donald Trump was going to win the election because I could judge by the mood of the people in the Rust Belt. I don't think he's the greatest president there ever was, but I don't think his predecessor was the greatest president there ever was. And I think people should think through some of this stuff. And I think they're totally overreact. And if they would use this, I think they would mitigate some of the problems. Because as long as you keep this stuff boiling inside, you're going to suffer.
Yes.
That's the way I see it.
Yeah, yeah. Well.
And he's impermanence. I'm not going to be here forever, and neither is he.
Yeah.
So what's the
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. Not that he's going to die. He's not going to be president.
Yeah. Well, I think I agree that we should use Buddhism to self-reflect, and if we are having enduring suffering, then you can analyze the source of your suffering, and that is why I brought this up, and I think it's helped me to deal with my own perceptions and question whether that is my assumptions, is it always right? And you can't just judge the person on certain things, but you got to look at other things. And I think this kind of model helps you to see things more objectively. But there are clear reasons why a lot of people have problem with him. But I don't want to go into that right now. I think we can deal with it on more on an individual basis. But it is a divided country because people do have strong feelings one way or the other. Okay.
I have a question about Dana. Okay, so how do we encourage Dana if it's selfless and people tend to want compensation for things?
You're looking for, you want to encourage people to do dana, yeah? And, I guess we can say that the most rewarding type of giving is the one that is selfless, people may not think so, but if you're doing things to be compensated, that is still, kind of relative, and it's not fully meaningful and rewarding, and there's not as much real joy, and I would say that's my immediate response. So I think maybe I need to understand what kind of context are you trying to encourage the YBA people to do something that is? Are you trying to get someone else to be dana?
I'm trying to encourage my sangha
to
do more dana and less. I want reimbursement for buying stuff for the church.
Okay. So in that case, if you did something for an organization, you shouldn't. It's not to say you shouldn't be reimbursed. You should be reimbursed for expenses that you incurred, and so you're saying you're not getting reimbursed, or. So that is okay.
Okay, so my understanding of dana is you're just supposed to give out of the good of your heart, but the people in my sangha, not naming names, but some people they buy stuff to make food and sell, but then they expect every last penny of what they bought to be given back to them.
Okay. Well, I think it probably depends on the activity, and maybe there has to be a clear sense of the nature of the activity. Because if it's supposed to be a pure dana, then you shouldn't be expecting things to be returned or reimbursed. But probably it seems like in that kind of a setting, that people expect to be reimbursed, and so maybe there's not a clear sense of the real purpose, and you have to probably clarify that as an activity. Yeah, but yeah, and maybe you can have get a consensus amongst the people, the YBA members, that this will be a dana. And I think if you're going to do as a group, you should reimburse people for whatever money they spend on things to make that happen. But what they do in terms of their labor, that we should have an understanding that this we're doing out of pro bono or without getting anything back. So when I think it's easiest when you're dealing with yourself. You and what you want to do. But when you get in organization involved and other people, that gets very messy at times because that happens all the time. So, but the nature of dana is something that you want to do, and when you do something, then you do it without expecting anything in return. Maybe we can talk later, but basically, all I can say is that personal and organization are very different animals, and so when you get confused, and we have to when you mix the two, it gets a little more complicated.
Can I say something on that? We had a discussion on dana, and if you're doing something and it doesn't have to be monetary, but if it helps somebody, even if you're doing it for the wrong reason, then that's fine. Because after a while, it still helps the other person, right? So and with time, you might figure out how to do it the right way, get more out of it. But it's hard because we're living in this area of a lot of attachment, so it's almost impossible. But my grandfather used to always say, we should be good for nothing. And what that means is be good for no reason at all.
Good for no reason at all.
I think we have to cut some people some slack because we live in the secular world and not everybody has the budget to monetarily give things. So like in my case, I know my husband is a stickler for receipts. I always nag the office, I need that receipt. But at the same time, we give our bodies because we volunteer for almost everything and we do a lot. So, you give the way you can, and otherwise we're being judgmental. And the other part is sometimes if we have people of other cultures join our Sangha, they don't understand some of the reciprocity things. So that's an education piece that we need to teach people.
Yeah.
But, and anyway, changing subjects, I was wondering too about being in the present, for example, the cancer and then Mr. Trump. Sometimes in our Sangha, there was a member whose friend was terminal, and the friend kept asking, and our friend kept asking, like, why me, why me? But then, we started in our discussion, why not me? Because what is the lesson in this? Why, what can you learn? You can just pass and nothing happens, or you can take that as a teaching moment. And in our case, we even had a reverend who almost destroyed our temple. But, what's the lesson in it? Like, why did that person show up right then? And how did we overcome it? And how did we get stronger and get back together again? So, you can learn from it.
Yeah. Well, that actually is a topic of my next session, how to deal with difficulties and suffering. And you can turn it to a more positive result. Yeah. So I think it's natural that when something like that happens, you ask the question, why me? But as Buddhistically speaking, or any spiritual tradition, you want to get beyond that. And hopefully you have developed yourself to a point where you can do that. And so, yeah, okay.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your participation so far. We're going to take a 15-minute break, so 2 minutes or 3 minutes after 8 o'clock, we'll get started again. Thank you very much.
yeah, you? Yeah, 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 yeah. You all look so awesome. Did you go to classes? Did you go to classes? Oh, jazz. Oh, did you change? Yeah, because you changed a lot of things, right? I haven't been to, no, I don't go to Oh, you don't go Hawaii Pine? I go to, the one that you did, the jazz recital. That's cool. Wow. No, I don't know. It looks good. No, I don't like so. No, no. It's just the yoga and the class. Oh, no, I don't. I think it's good. Yeah, I don't. Oh, he's at home with mom. And, yeah, because, mom, sprained and fractured her back when she was doing Zumba. So yeah, I don't know, but she's okay. But yeah, and then dad went to surgery too, so he's not going to classes either. Just to put the fistula in, like it's like a diabetes thing. Yeah, yes, you might have to go dialysis. That's all. No, yeah. So he cannot come to. He doesn't go to. No, we go exercise on our own now. Yeah, just like just go to the gym and just go on the bicycle. But yeah, but I think these classes are kind of too long for him now. Yeah, he gets tired, But no, but they're doing okay. Yeah, no, they're doing good. Yeah. I'm just glad they're like out of the hospital. Yeah, it's all about perspective, right? Yeah. But you, how are you doing though? Jazzercise Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Wow. Well, they have that many classes. Wow, that's awesome. You stay Monday and you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Oh. And it's like 8:30 to 9:30. And oh yeah, no, like before, like the other classes, yeah, it's like so crowded. Yeah. That's nice they have that though. Yeah, because most jazzercise classes are afterwards. Yeah. So there's a lot of retired people here. Oh yeah, no, that's so good. Yeah, it's so good to have that. Yeah, because the Hawaii kind of do. I mean, I don't know what happened because I wasn't going either. I just with my dad. But I think they changed me. Oh yeah, sure. Oh, okay, sure.
tiny. Really?
Buddhist minister's tradition.
Yeah.
To have a little alcohol.
Right. You know what they call that, right? They call it hanyato in Japanese. Hanyato. Hanyato. It means wisdom water. Right? The more you have it, the more wise you think you are, right?
Okay. One minute warning, everyone. Looks like everybody's having too good a time here, you know? That's great. I'm sure all of you are really partaking of the good food that's been voluntarily brought, Project Dana kind of stuff, voluntarily brought by everyone. You know, we have sign-up lists. I'm one of those guys that like to sign up for stuff to commit myself. But you always buy stuff on the way here and just bring it. And that's what I see happening over there. A lot of good people, a lot of good food. So thank you, everyone, for contributing along the way. Okay, well, Dr. Tanaka is on the phone. I'll tell you what happened when I heard the alert. I had just teed off on the second tee at Makaha East Golf Course. It's a par 3 golf course. And we're headed down. It was a beautiful day, perfect day. And, you know, the alert comes on my phone. It's kind of like, okay, you know, in 15 minutes we're going to die. So, hey, not a bad way to go, you know. And I just wasn't, you know, I thought, I guess I better call my wife up and tell her I love her, which is what I did. I called my wife up. I said, you know, if this is it, thank you so much for everything. But I'm going to continue to play. Bye. Actually, I played better the next 2 holes before I actually found out what actually happened. I thought, hey, this is pretty good.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah, okay. Well, it really looks like you all went through a traumatic experience. And yeah, we heard about it, and I hadn't, the first time, talking to people who really went through it. And I've been concerned because I live in Tokyo, and their rockets go way past them. So for sure they can hit Japan. And yeah. But yeah, we are hoping that things will work out. And yeah. Okay, so the second session is on the topic of turning difficulties into renewed life. And so when addressing this, the image that comes to mind is the lotus flower, right? Out of the mud grows the lotus flower. And why is it such an important symbol of Buddhism? Is because it deals with the mud. The mud represents what we've been talking about, difficulties and suffering. But despite that, it grows into an exquisitely beautiful flower. Have you ever seen lotus flower? Of course. But, they are just, it's the king of flowers. And so it's been very much part of one of the most enduring and popular symbols of Buddhism. And as you notice, my understanding is a lot of the Buddhist statues rest on the lotus petals. And so the key here is that it's rooted in mud. Okay? It's not in clean, pristine soil. So it overcame the mud and flowered into such a beautiful flower. So now in dealing with this, we need to know the nature of difficulties / suffering. So this image, this diagram that I've been using is this one, more this one here. So the main point that I would like to put across, as I have under 8.2, actually 9.1, is that I use the word difficulties and suffering. So you may think we're talking about the same word. Are they the same? No. Okay, good. If you get anything out of this summer session, that's one of the important points, is that difficulties are on this level. Difficulty on the horizontal axis. Okay, the objective, everyday realm in which we live and work and play. So the difficulties, different things happen, and some of the things I was just talking about in the previous session. And you can all think of, you have the highs, but you have the lows, highs and lows. So it's like a roller coaster ride, or it can be, life is a bumpy road. So, but then suffering is on this level. It's more the subjective level. It's what we feel. Who would find the two to be very different, far apart? I mean, in Buddhism, it would be the Buddha, fully enlightened person. What we may find, find suffering, he would not. Now, the example that I gave you yesterday, that if this kind of a loud stranger type came barging in the door, that all of us because we have these judgmental attitudes and maybe prejudice, that we will probably fear that person and feel suffering. But a Buddha, because he or she wouldn't have suffering. So there will be a distinction between. So for him, it may even not be a difficulty. It's just an event. Something happened due to cause. It just happened. A guy walked in, but it doesn't become a suffering for him. So we need to keep that distinction between difficulties and suffering. Okay, so, and what is that wisdom that I picked up at a public toilet someplace in Central California? The scribbling, the graffiti on the wall. You know, it's you know, don't expect truth to be in the sutras. They can be in the most odd places, such as in the public toilet graffiti. And he said, difficulties are inevitable, but suffering is optional. Okay, and you know, it seems maybe a little, you know, humorous, but yes, I think this gets the heart of it. You know, whether or not you make that difficulty into suffering is optional. However, having said that, you know, is it easy to practice? No, it's very difficult, and especially for those of us who are not ordained, but who have left the world and live in monastery, the monks and nuns, because they're in more of a pristine environment. They don't have to live in a world that's full of attachments and attachments. So, okay, so I was going to say something that, but just kind of. Okay, so. Okay, I was. So the point next, as I said just now, is that though we say the two are different, it's not easy to separate the two because we have the three poisons. And especially those of us who are ordinary, foolish beings. But I was just thinking recently, I wanted to ask you, you know, you heard that word foolish. How about ordinary, imperfect beings? I was thinking, you know, for someone who understands Shinshu more, then foolish would be acceptable. But if you say up front, you know, ordinary, foolish beings, do you want to come to our church? You know, I'm not foolish. So maybe we should keep that in mind. I think for people who have been, you know, who have been studying, they can appreciate the word foolish, but maybe imperfect would be a little better. So I'm going to be using ordinary, imperfect beings. So we ordinary, imperfect beings cannot help but to kind of, you know, have the difficulties become automatically suffering because we have the gas. And especially under 10, you know, because our lay life includes marriage, family, work, political and economic engagements, and we had evidence of, you know, political engagement, and, you know, we get very worked up over it because we have strong feelings about this. And so it's the nature of our lay life to have attachments and three poisons, especially family, especially husband and wife and mothers and parents and children. You know, I don't know if I mentioned that. I forgot whether it was this group or not, but many years ago when I decided to get married. Did I talk about this? I called a former Zen monk under whom I studied. Oh, okay. Oh, good. So before I got married, I was studying in Japan, and I went to Fukushima area, where the famous the nuclear power plant is. And I think it was nearby. Anyway, but this was years ago. And I went for 5 days of sesshin. And boy, it was a lot of work. You got up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and by the time we had breakfast, we had meditated for 3 hours. And I felt myself, boy, it's only 8 o'clock, and what am I going to do the rest of the day? But they had things for us to do. We just meditated 40 minutes each, and then you couldn't talk at all. No talking. And you don't interact with anybody. You sit there, and then you eat on that spot. And so it was quite an experience. I really had a wonderful time, and I learned a lot because it was interesting. In Zen sessions, the teacher will come and hit you. Especially if you're falling asleep, they come and slap. Or you can request to be hit to wake yourself up. But on this occasion, the guy next to me, he was being hit really hard. I mean, it's not just tap like that. It's like, you can hear it and go bam, 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 bam. And I thought, boy, this guy's not doing a good job, And I said, I'm doing so much better. No, because I wasn't being hit at all. Well, it turns out that at the end of the 5 days, the main teacher and assistant teachers came up to the guy next to me and said, congratulations, congratulations, because he had attained a level of kensho, which is equivalent to, I think, shinjin. And so, in our tradition, we don't do anything like that, right? You see someone and no one comes up and says, congratulations. I think we should. But again, it's not that easy because we don't, it's a very subjective thing. But at this session, they seemed to know that he had attained this level. But anyway, so, and I felt on the third day of the 5 days, the hard, every day getting up I said to myself, boy, I'm glad I'm Joro Shinshu. I really felt, and not that Zen people do that all the time, that would be. So anyway, going back from the monastery to the station, I never felt so light in my life. I felt like my body was just walking on air, really. And but that's not to say it's anything mystical or anything like that. It just, I think, I don't know what it is, but the rigorous 5-day session did that. But anyway, this master, or the main teacher, was someone I really respected. I mean, you can tell how he really cared about each student and how he's trying to help people become, attain some awakening or insight. In that tradition, you have what's called doksan. You go and meet with the teacher one-on-one, and they give you some kind of what's called koan. And you have to go back and they have to say something. But whatever you say, there's no right answer or wrong answer. It's how you say it, and I guess they can judge what level you're at. So it was quite an experience. So I got to get to know him a bit, and so I respected him. So this is what I wanted to talk about is about the fact that marriage is a source of attachment. Okay, so I told him a year later that, hey, I called up and said, oh, hey, Sensei, I'm getting married, and I thought he'll be kind of happy. You know what he said? He says, oh, then it's over. It's over. I was kind of stunned. I said, すいません, what? Yeah, もう終わりだね. And and so till this day, I really don't know what he really meant. Was he joking or was he, But I kind of understand what he was trying to say. He said that, traditional Buddhism you leave the house, you leave the source of attachment to really, do the cultivation. But here I was getting right into the very source of attachment. So that episode is an indication to some people and to some of that the ordinary life is filled with attachment. It's based on attachment, right? One example, another example is that family, we're so attached to our family. And we say we have to love all beings, but we make distinctions, I remember a story, I think it was a Japanese movie, and I don't know why, I just remember this one scene, and I was a child, and someone died, this man was told that there was a murder at his son's house. The son had gotten married. So, and didn't say who was murdered. So obviously, he was so upset, and he rushed to the house, and then when he saw the body, right, he was relieved. It was not his son, it was his son's wife. Okay? So there, of course, he's distraught to have his daughter-in-law murdered like that, but it was not his son. So the distinction that you make between your own child and someone that he or she marries. How about you people? If you were in the same situation, would you have, your own child or the spouse? And I thought about this. I thought about it, and I emotionally, almost instinctually, make that distinction. If I were to give up my life for my kids now, I probably can do it. If you say, if you're a son or me, are you willing to give up for whatever reasons? I wouldn't have too much problem. But how about for his wife? And I said, no. How about you? No. Okay. So that's an example of attachment that we make distinction. But what if that wife is the mother of your grandchild? Then it's a little different. And actually, I'm not happy to. I just found out 4 days ago that I'm going to be a grandpa for the first time. Yeah, so thank you. It's a kind of a very nice feeling. So we were very happy about it. So now I see Sandy a little differently. Really. She's going to be a mother of our grandchildren. Yeah. It was interesting. We're talking on Skype. I'm going to be seeing him, in 2 weeks. But we speak to each other every 3 or 4 months. But just all of a sudden, even though we're going to see in 2 weeks, I said, well, we want to talk to you. And so I kind of felt it was a little, strange and something. And then we're talking, and then all of a sudden he says, we got you something for your retirement. And I said, that's nice of you. And he showed me this phone, and he had a picture, what looked like a womb and something small inside. And I kind of sensed, is it? And then, but I couldn't, it looked like a mouse, so I didn't want to say. And then, but my days, we never had photos like that. But nowadays, he shows me his phone, and you can see the kind of light spot, and then right in the middle, what looked like a mouse, And then he said, and I said, looks like a mouse. And I said, no, it's a baby. Whose baby? Ours. Yay! Wonderful moment. Yeah. So anyway, Sandy is now perceived differently, and that's the source of our dichotomy. Okay. So and then so on another level or a different perspective, why do we have the 3 poisons? We have attachments, but basically it's the very physical makeup that, the fact that we are alive, human being, self-preservation and self-promotion is at the basis of our three poisons. And then scientifically, we can talk about a dopamine, and I'm sorry I misspelled. Dopamine this is the right way. I've been in Japan too long. So dopamine is that hormone that desires things. You want, when you see something that you like, you seek it, and then you get hooked on it, you want more. The more you want, the more you see. That's the nature of the dopamine hormones, and that's at the foundation, at the bottom, behind why we want things, So that's very nature of our almost DNA. And then the other one is the adrenaline, or there's another different forms of adrenaline. The spelling, maybe there's an E at the end. There are two forms, Line, but either case, this is different from dopamine. It's the hormone that pushes away, or someone said earlier, fight or flight. It's that hormone that makes you, aversion. So it's the greed is a dopamine, and adrenaline is kind of pushing away, fighting, and so you want to preserve yourself by getting away. So the very nature of physical makeup is rooted in the three poisons. So actually, I think that I said earlier, those monks and nuns who are secluded in the mountains, they can, actually it's easier for them to practice Buddhism in a pristine environment. I would probably think that most of them, if they came back to secular life, they're going to have the same problem. So probably the best thing is if you really want to lead a tranquil life, go up in the mountains. That's the way to do it. But not everyone can do it. Most of us have chosen to lead secular life. Actually, I think I mentioned that when I was young, I went to a monastery in Thailand, and I contemplated very briefly, doing this for a long time, but I realized right away that it wasn't for me. For some people, it's better. I think it fits them better. But for me, I realized that I'm a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist. I have to be in the middle of, in the mix of things. And so you have all made a choice, actually, to lead a life that is full of attachment. And so number 11, how then do we lead a life based on our three poisons? There's E missing there. So I think first of all is realize that three poisons and attachment are the cause of our suffering. And don't be pushed around by your own likes and dislikes. And actually, so though you cannot get rid of it, at least know that that is your cause, and that helps to some extent. Like the first session, we're talking about, two issues, and they also point out to me that source of my consternation is my attachments, and so at least know why you are, the difficulties have turned to become your suffering. That was an option, although it's it's a kind of automatic option. But if you were a Buddha, it wouldn't be an option. And through mindfulness meditation and Nembutsu meditation, become more sensitive to the workings of your mind. And I think that many people today are often, looking outwardly. I think more so in Japan. I think Americans tend to be more, they're more sensitive to the religious dimensions. And but though Japan is a kind of Buddhist country, and Shinto and Buddhism is very strong, in my opinion, not as many people really know the teachings, and so they haven't really internalized the teachings where they're looking inward. And that's why a lot of temples and shrines are places for rituals and petitionary prayers. You go to religious institutions to ask for things to help them on this level, without really doing this, without going here. They just stay on this level. And like that person who asked a Jodo Shinshu minister for car blessing yesterday, and it doesn't really work. If it did work, I would do it. Actually, that reminds me, I was in a place called Shimane, which is on the backside of Japan, and he belongs to another school of Buddhism, and he does a lot of rituals. And boy, he has 7 assistant priests. He's so busy because many people come for petitionary prayers. And then I said, do you have Jodo Shinshu members, members of Jodo Shinshu temples? He says, yeah, there are many Jodo Shinshu members, and I'm glad because many of them do go to him quietly. That's what he said. He says, I'm thankful there are many Jodo Shinshu because they cannot go to their own temple to have their petitionary prayers. They have to come to us. And I said, that's really interesting, And so, well, then in a way, these Jodo Shinshu members really haven't internalized the teachings. They're going out there and thinking religion is to control this through religious rituals. Okay, so, and then, so looking within, and then same with utilize the 5 experiential processes that we talked about. So now, number 2, practice the teaching of having less desire and know when you are sufficiently fulfilled. This is a well-known teaching, which is found in the larger sutra. Less desire and know when you are sufficiently fulfilled. This applies especially to human relationships. It's pretty obvious. If you desire a lot, if you want a lot of things of other people, then you're bound to have suffering. Isn't that right? Ask yourself, when do you have these what we call suffering? And oftentimes it's because oftentimes human relationship, and oftentimes you want certain people to act in a certain way, but people don't, and that's why you have that gap, and that leads to your suffering. So it's always good to keep in mind, the more you expect, and that's desire, the more you expect of other people, then you're bound to have conflicts and suffering. But if you just go with that and don't make request of anybody, then you'll be frustrated, right? So you have to find a happy medium, so the middle path. Sometimes you have to speak up and express what you want of people, and what And one example that happened very recently is that, I had my, actually on Christmas Day last year, I had my final lecture and a kind of a retirement party afterwards. So I sent emails to a lot of my old friends, old students, with whom I've gotten to know. And then this one student, he emailed me and said, I heard, I heard about your thing and I want to go, but he didn't know much, he didn't have the exact information, so I sent it to him. But I didn't hear a beep. He didn't respond at all. And it's someone I know well, and so that was last year, and now it's July. And then the other day on Facebook, we just connected, and so I thought, okay, shall I do this? I debated, I wanted to tell him, why didn't you even respond? You don't have to come to it, but he had no courtesy, even courtesy to respond, even especially after he had asked for it. Okay, so I said, how come you didn't respond? Then he says, I was busy, and that really got me going. Everybody's busy, you know, and I said, I'm not saying this for me because I don't really care. I care maybe 25%, you know. But 75%, you know, is, I said, for, you know, as one of my students, I want him to have the courtesy as he goes out in the world more and to, you know, respond when you're supposed to. And I said a few other things, and then not a word after. So I realized that that's the kind of person he was. At least, well, we don't know the exact. I mean, maybe he didn't see it. Maybe, you know, he's thinking about it. But I have a feeling that he's upset, you know. And then I feel a little bad. You know, my student, I don't want him to be upset. But I figure that this is an example where I took the middle path between just, you know, being a desire. I want him to act in a certain way, and that causes friction. And for a day or two, I felt a little, you know, bad. I was hoping that he'll respond, but he hasn't responded yet. And so, so if that's an example of if you take the initiative to expect something more, the expectation is desire, and the more you have, the more tension you'll have. It's easy to see. But sometimes you have to go against that and take a stand. And that has to do with, you know, even political conviction or anything. And whenever you do something that is an ideal, out of the ordinary, then there will tend to be friction, and that will cause, you know, some consternation on your part. And sometimes you want to pick your battles. You don't want to, you know, fight battles that you really don't want to get into. But sometimes you feel strong enough and you want to stand your ground. And so that's a decision that we all must make. Okay, so then the third point is suffering as an opportunity to learn and discover something new and a springboard for contribution to others. So this is earlier, one of the people made the point that suffering can be a source of learning. But I'm saying that too, and also a source of contributing or taking the energy and anger to making things better. And a good example of the founder of the MADD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And this lady by the name of Candace Leiter had lost her daughter to a drunk driver, and she took that anger and sadness and started this movement, and it's in every state in the U.S., and it's really made a lot of difference. And so I think, when I heard this, I thought, well, that's really wonderful. And there are many people who have done that, turned the anger and the sadness to something that's more positive and making a difference in the world. So in this light, we're talking about having a post-lecture gathering where we have beer. And I was told that it's not like Japan, where you have public transportation and some of you have to drive. If you do attend and you have beer, well, let's not, drink and drive, okay? So I think we have to be careful that, if you have to, you can, sleep in a residence. I didn't get the permission from Reverend Kunyuki, but okay. So the other person that I briefly want to discuss has to do with the founder of Musashino University, named Junjiro Takakusu. Actually, he died in 1945, but no. Yeah, he did. So he actually came to University of Hawaii and gave a lecture for a whole year in 1937 or so. And so, well, he's the founder of the university that I work for, and he's also the editor of the Taisho Tripitaka Canon. There are 100 volumes, you know, and he edited that. He led the editing. He had a lot of people supporting him. Anyway, he and his wife had 8 children. You know how many he lost? 7. 7 of the 8 children died before them. And when you think about it, and then there's a list of what years he was doing things and when his children died, and I just can't imagine doing all this after he had lost one child after another. And he established our university, but was president of another, and did a lot of things. And so, and what he said was that, and he wrote, what he said was that our children are bodhisattvas. Bodhisattvas who taught us what is reality. Taught us what is the real nature of existence. And then, so he took that and then did what he could in the area of education, scholarship, and international relations. So that's Junjiro Takakusu, another example. And finally, Beastie Boys. I don't know if you know that the guy named last name is Yoke. I forgot his first name. But anyway, he unfortunately passed away at a young age. But Beastie Boys were pretty big, and a number of years ago. And he was a Buddhist, very committed Buddhist, Tibetan Buddhist. And he wrote a book. He wrote a song called Bodhisattva Vow. Okay, so this part is indicative of how he takes difficulties and turns them into a lesson for him to further his spiritual growth. It's really, amazing that he can do this and talk about it in such an articulate way. And so maybe we can all read together. The underline, we can I think I had some problem with this, but so there wording here where he says, whatever's happening, I turn it into a positive as a way to learn myself and to develop myself. Okay, if others disrespect. Okay, 1, 2, 3. If others disrespect me or give me flack, I'll stop and think before I react, knowing that they're going through insecure stages. I'll take the opportunity to exercise patience. I'll see it as a chance to help the other person, nip it in the bud before it can worsen. A chance for me to be strong and sure. As I think on the Buddhas who have come before, as I praise and respect the good they've done, knowing love can conquer hate in every situation. We need other people in order to create the circumstances for the learning that we're here to generate. Situations that bring up our deepest fears, so we can work to release them until they're cleared. Therefore, it only makes sense to thank our enemies despite their intent. Oh, okay, no, that's not it. That's the final word from me. That may the lotus flower continue to bloom in you even more. Thank you very much. Okay.
Are there any questions?
Yes?
Questions?
What is gas? I wasn't here the previous 2 days.
Where is what?
Gas.
Gas. Oh. Can you ask the person next to you?
Greed, anger, and stupidity.
Not quite.
Aversion.
My version today, this time. Aversion. Yeah. Greed, aversion, and stupidity. But anger is okay. But aversion is better because it includes both anger and hatred. So did you? And also, so the aim of Buddhism is to release the gas. But we ordinary people, imperfect people cannot. But to know that, you can lessen to some degree the impact of that. So, yes.
Okay, so my question is about the part where you were talking about reducing desire as a way to avoid suffering. So I was thinking about a distinction between desire and attachment to the ends. So for instance, let's say there's a certain thing you want to see happen in politics or an environmental campaign that you want to succeed, and you can have a desire that it comes out a certain way that you think is beneficial for the environment. But if you kind of are able to let go of your attachment to the end, like a certain result, it has to come out that way, otherwise I'm going to be devastated.
Yeah.
I think you can still have a desire, but if you can detach from the ends, you can still avoid the suffering.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. I think that point is good in two ways. One is because, as you say, you're detached from the end. That you're not completely attached to the fact that it has to go the certain way. And I think that is a good attitude. So in that sense, it's a very good desire. I think there's bad desire and good desire. And another reason why that's a good desire is because you're not doing it for yourself. It's not only me. It's not a selfish desire. You're not promoting yourself, and you're concerned about what you think must be done for the good of all people. And so on those 2 points. But you have to also know that that still is a desire, and so it may cause friction vis-a-vis other people and cause you some suffering. Their opposition to what you're doing, but you are committed to the ultimate goal, so you can practice patience. The 6 paramitas. That's where the patience comes in. So you're trying to implement an ideal, and it takes patience, perseverance, and effort. So that's why the 6 paramitas are important. Yeah, thank you. So I think the point that is the good desire and bad desire. If it's welfare of more people, and so actually desire to spread the teachings, share the teachings, if it doesn't become, intrusive, then it's a good desire. But it is still a desire, and I have this kind of a dream of in Japan, stand in front of the station and do sermons, And I mentioned that to my wife, and she goes, "No, I think you better think about it twice." But I think if I could do it, that really would be great. And I don't expect a whole lot of people to stop and listen, but in a way, in the past, in the Asian Buddhist countries, priests did that, and so but that is a desire on my part, and it's not going to be easy. Okay, anybody else? Yeah.
I just wanted to add something to the ending part on 11, number 3. What we can learn from this? You have A and B. But I would like to add something to that, maybe C or something like that.
Yeah.
And what it is you don't have to do something and create a foundation or something, but what you can learn from going and having suffering or having some kind of event, whether it's a health issue or something, it can teach you something. And so it helps you to look at life more whole and as the whole self. So, you had those three things that how we can take care of a situation. In that situation, from the book I'm reading right now, you cannot use it in that sense. If you either go along with it or run away from it, or you try to do something about it and get your goal oriented, you're actually going to get a lot of suffering. But if you just kind of step back and just look at and objectively observe the situation and just kind of see it and kind of go with the flow of the thing, then you actually learn something out of it. And what it leads to is instead of trying to look at, oh, why me, and I gotta, why I wish this would just go away, you're looking more at accepting the situation, not so much approval of the situation, but accepting what is. And you're accepting your whole self, not just the good side of yourself, but the bad stuff. Not trying to change it, but just looking at it. And then by accepting that, that's the stage that you can get to before you get to the stage of actually trying to make change. And they say the irony of the whole thing is once you accept something, that's actually the time that most people change.
Yeah. I think you mentioned the health situation. So if it's a terminal situation, and that would be the ultimate goal is to be able to accept and to and find meaning in that. And it's kind of related to the Freddie the Leaf that we read the other day. You accept that you have to leave the tree, and then you find out that, it wasn't bad after all. Although, it's not that easy, but with greater spiritual awareness and understanding, you can accept it better. And that's why, again, it's important to be working on yourself at normal times, and not just at the extraordinary times. And okay. And so, and I do want to emphasize, like the lady who started MAD, something like that is very, impressive. Taking something that is very, painful, and turning that into to good like that. And I think we can all do that to some extent. And so when it first started back then, that I was always supportive. I think I've donated somewhat, even when but when I was still in California. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so you want to? Okay, so I just want to say, we started this post-session gathering, and we want to have it again, but we won't go beyond 10 o'clock, and you can leave anytime. And so, if you like, please come and share stories with us. Yeah. Okay.
Let's give Dr. Tanaka.
Yeah. One more other thing. Just to give you, tomorrow we have another set of talks. On the last day, I've decided, I think I mentioned briefly, that I'll be showing my DVD 1-hour documentary that NHK did on my work. And then we will show it here, and then I will stand here and I will translate. And then otherwise you'll have a lot of suffering out there. And then the last session will be on, and then that'll be 45 minutes. But I probably will show some slides of the story of this one here, and then conclude with that. Okay.
Okay, great. You know, you are all tribute coming again another evening to enjoy Dr. Tanaka's talks, and it's a real tribute to him. So let's give him a great hand. All right, so please help yourself to more refreshments if you want to stay over. Apparently we have other kinds of refreshments available for the Pauhana session. Thank you very much for another great evening.